Hello and welcome back to Geek Warning, the podcast from Escape Collective that exists for all things cycling tech. I'm Dave Rome, and joining me this week,
Ronan Mc Laughlin.
And Alex Hunt.
Hello both. We've got a solid team of tech here, and full episode ahead. We've got big wheels are back on our mind. I know, Ronan, you've been digging into this one, so we'll discuss that. There's some brake-related things we want to talk about. There's a stop ride notice that has now become a recall, just as of a few minutes ago while we're recording this. And of course, we're going to wrap up with our usual Ask a Wrench. Brad Copeland's back on to answer a bunch of questions, including a few related to tubeless things, which is nice. So anyway, before we get into all that, question for you both. What was the last cycling product that you used that left you frustrated and wanting more? Alex?
There's one that comes to mind because I'm still using it. I'm still trying to find the love for it and understand it. But the version 3 Wahoo Element Roam just is getting on my nerves at the minute for just how long it takes to turn on. I mean, compared to a Garmin, we're looking at probably over a minute before it's usable, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm out of my road and wanting to start the ride by that time. So yeah, a little bit frustrated with that one, that's for sure.
It's a perimeter safety feature. It stops you accidentally being able to upload your house to...
Yeah, lets me get 500 meters away from my home.
I've had the same frustration, Alex. I have that head unit as well. And the only consolation I can give you is that it's not the Ace, because the Ace has more problems than how long it takes to turn on. But yeah, the startup time is very, very frustrating. I think it's longer than a minute. Because like almost every time I turn it on, I think, oh, this is broke. But then on the third day it starts again.
It's one of the things I was most disappointed about, to be honest, because I've used the older Roams and I thought, the updates and everything going forward, that would have been something that got resolved and updated to bring it in line with the other computers. But nope, they've kept that little quirk to this version 3.
Maybe it's because now it has like a Wahoo logo on screen the whole time and the wee thing doing circles. I don't know, but I don't remember it being that long with previous versions of it.
I'm deeply disappointed to hear my namesake computer is slow.
There's a joke in there, Dave. I'm going to do my best to resist.
All right. Ronan, what about you? What product has left you?
I have two. One that I've had for a long time and has been disappointing from the start, and that's the Cask Nirvana helmet. And I put it on last week again to try and just find something to say about it. The thing I can really find is that it's just not as enjoyable as most Cask helmets. And it's still got the merino wool pad at the front, which I thought was an issue with the Elemento that I'd reviewed last year. And so, the thing I know about all Cask's helmets for me is that I put them on and immediately just have a sense of comfort and security. You don't really have that. Like, this feels loose, so it doesn't really feel secure. It's just not as comfortable as, for me, as other Casks.
You think they changed their head form for that helmet?
And I've been wondering that. I've been wondering, did I get a different size or something? But it's the same labeled size. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just, then you've got the fact that it's just a bit hideous looking. Doesn't really help either. But yeah, the other one that's been, I'm reluctant to call it a disappointment because it has made things a bit more controllable, let's say. That is the Silka chain waxing system. And I was previously using like a crockpot that I got off eBay that arrived in a busted cardboard box and was badly dented all over, and I paid something like £10 for. It was highly, highly used, but it did the job. The issue with that was that you had to pay so much attention not to overheat and destroy the wax. And I've kind of got the opposite issue with Silka. And the other issue with the crockpot was just so damn big. It just took up, I couldn't have it on a counter or something. It just took up so much space. Yeah. And the issues with the Silka are the opposite in that it's too small, in my opinion. Like if you're using an Explorer chain with 126 links or something like that, it takes a lot of working to get it to fit into the pot.
Yeah. You have to be very precise with how you wrap the chain on its little holder to...
Yeah.
It's fiddly, yeah.
The holder always ends up, if you let go at all, like dropping into the wax and getting covered in wax. And because it is so small and you have to like agitate the chain at times, obviously the wax, when it's melted, pours out. I love the fact that you can just set it, it'll go to 125 degrees and you won't overheat the wax. That for that reason, I will definitely keep using it. And for that reason, I think it's great. But the cooldown process just takes so much longer, because if you follow Silka's instructions and, set the system to 75 degrees, then it just takes forever to come down to that temperature. And because you still got a heated element or whatever it is inside there keeping heat in the system. So I found myself having to turn it off. And then, so part of the thinking for me in getting the system was that I would be able to have a digital display of what the temperature of the wax currently is. And I wouldn't need to use my infrared thermometer anymore. But lo and behold, I still have to use the infrared thermometer to try and figure out when it's at 70 degrees so I can pull it out at the right second. And because it takes so long, probably again due to the size, it's so compact, all the heat is sort of kept in there. It's just double the amount of time I've taken to wax a chain.
Counterpoint, if it's 70 degrees or 72 or 75 on the surface, it's close enough. Just pull that thing out before you forget about and end up with a candle that you have to melt again.
See, I prefer the candle, because at least the candle you can just it's going to be clunky you can break it off and all that stuff. Whereas if you take it out too early, it can just pour out.
Oh no, I mean an actual candle where you forget about it and you come back and everything is fully cooled off.
Maybe Gen 2 of the Silka same waxing system is slightly bigger, and I think it resolves most of the issues, if it is.
Okay. Well, my most lackluster product experience comes from 2012, as of today, when I was working on someone's room brake bike and had completely forgotten that really crummy quick releases were a cause for all sorts of issues. And I went chasing hub bearing play within the hub without thinking that it was just a lack of tension from the lightweight quick releases, and putting the hubs back together and admitting defeat that I couldn't fix it no matter, different bearings or even shims within the axle, and that the play existed. I was ready to admit defeat, and then changed out the lightweight skewers for some Shimano's, and miraculously the issue went away. So anyway, a bit of a throwback for my my disappointment of a product. So yeah, generic hubs and lightweight skewers don't belong.
Dave, can I give you another one? You've started something there.
Oh no, this is just the whole episode now, isn't it?
I hate seat posts.
Yeah, who needs them?
I mean, what are we even doing? 2025 and we're still using seat posts. No, specifically, I hate ones that just don't want to be adjusted. If you have to I think you know where I'm going here, Ryan, but some of them are just, you can adjust fore and aft and angle separately. And that's the way it should be. All others are single bolt setups that either seed into position, or don't tighten up enough, and so you hit a pothole hard enough and it'll adjust the position.
Yep.
Or other ones, as I'm seeing more commonly now, they've somehow managed to adopt the worst of both designs, in that they're 2-bolt systems. So you think it should be, this should be good, but they, for whatever reason, they're putting in these little barrel adjusters that are impossible to adjust unless you completely loosen off the other bolt. And so it's what's even the point of this barrel adjuster? I'm frustrated by those.
2-bolt seat post where only 1 bolt does anything, basically.
Yeah.
And the other one's just an angle adjust, which is fiddly to move. Yeah, I get that.
I think Trek and Canyon, in my experience, have got this the best, and everyone else is absolutely failing.
Yeah. I'd say Easton do a good job of independent clamping system where you can the tilt is separate. It's like a 1 bolt to do the clamping, but then there's a secondary bolt that handles the tilt. So and that kind of locks in your tilt. So if you hit something big enough, it won't slip in its angle. Yeah, I'd say there's some decent designs around, but generally speaking, I'm still kind of a fan of the old Thompson Syncross design with the 2 bolts front and rear. Allen key can tighten them down correctly. They work with both round and oval rails without having different clamps. They're reliable. So anyway, sadly, not everyone agrees.
Shall we continue hating, or shall we move on to the show?
Yeah, let's continue hating with other topics. Let's get into the big topic of the week, which is a big topic we had a few weeks ago. The wheels keep rolling for 32-inch. But Ronan, you've actually been diving into this one, which is shocking to everyone involved. Because 32-inch wheels... Yeah, I'll let you tell the story. Why are you looking into 32-inch wheels?
Bigger is better, right? So I've been wondering, like, no, what initially sparked my interest was as we've now uncovered that the UCI is planning to ban 32-inch wheels, or at least as seriously considering a ban on 32-inch wheels, effectively killing these things in competition before they even take off. And so anything UCI rules definitely falls into my wheelhouse.
See what you did there.
And
I don't tire of those jokes.
that is why I've been drawn into this. I mean, you had this conversation a couple of weeks ago in the episode, and I remember being entirely zoned out. No, yeah, I'm very much not. And as I was sort of speaking to multiple different industry sources and various different people involved in these sorts of things, it became clear that actually my interest may grow even further, because it seems like 32-inch or 686, if we want to give it its nominal diameter code in terms of the rim size.
The bead seat diameter.
Yeah. Is on the way to drop bar bikes as well. And obviously gravel there probably makes the most sense, but from what I hear, could be on the way to road as well, which I don't understand.
Alex shaking his head. Yeah, I mean, Alex, you've actually discussed this with a few brands. I think you've done a few tours with brands that sort of secretly suggested they are working on it. I don't know if I think one of them has now confirmed it by having the bike seen at the World Cup, which is BMC.
Correct. Yeah.
But was there any discussion about fears of UCI getting involved when you've had these chats?
No, not at all. Not at the time. No. To be honest, there was very little discussion that they were willing to have with me at all about it. But from what I have spoken to some people about, it's more how it is going to be perceived when they get rolled out, beyond the sort of professional ranks, how the consumers will view another wheel size, which I think is fair. You know, like I said last time we discussed this, it doesn't feel that long that we moved on from 26 to 27.5 to 29, and now we're moving on again.
Yeah.
And you know, I think people are to some extent rightly fearful of what that means for the stuff they've got and the availability of things in the coming years. So yeah, I think consumer perception is something to think about when rolling out a new wheel size.
Yeah. And if you've ever asked for a hand at a hardware store to reach something from, like, to get some paint from the top shelf, then you're going to be disadvantaged with this new wheel size. So I say that as a not very tall person myself. I am very much thinking at the time I had to ask for some help getting some paint down. But no, Ronan, what's your reporting? Basically, yeah. What have you come across on this?
The rationale, as it is explained to me, the UCI's rationale is that they're concerned that a larger wheel size might disproportionately negatively affect smaller riders, and that if the suitable geometry can't be achieved around these larger wheels, then that might put smaller riders at a disadvantage when it comes to racing, which is not something they seem to consider at all when it came to handlebar width. So it's surprising that it's such a big concern for them now. If a cynic might say, well, that's maybe because they don't like the look of bigger wheels, or they don't like the overly aggressive looking stems that we might need to use to get into the same rider positions with bigger wheels. But anyway, all we know at the moment is that their rationale, amongst other things, the other things I can't confirm, but it does seem to be the primary thing here seems to be the concern about how it might negatively impact smaller riders. Speaking to several brands within the industry, they've all confirmed that they understand that the UCI is considering such a ban. They all also surprisingly all use pretty much the same word. They've said if the UCI is now going to start regulating mountain bike the way it does on the road, that is a disaster, is the word that was repeatedly used.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
Yeah, and I was kind of keen to understand why. Is that just because it's going to add complexity into the mountain bike space that they just don't want to be bothered dealing with? Or is it actually some fundamental disaster that will compromise everything going forward? And it seems to be more the latter, because brands will say, look, if they put in rules, we'll work around them, fair enough. But I think the most, there's obviously going to be a bit of fear mongering, maybe, in terms of the brands want to hype up how bad this will be right now because they don't want to see it happen. One of the examples given to me was like, it's already so difficult to play in the XE World Cup space if you're a brand. It's already so expensive for so little return. You're sort of having to question whether it makes sense or not. And if there are new rules coming in that make that more challenging, brands might well start thinking, is this worth the hassle?
I'd say there is sort of a precedent of the UCI being involved in the technical regulations of mountain bike. Like there isn't a lot of examples of it, but in recently, like I think the most recent one, like up till I think it was 2018, 2019 in downhill, mixed wheel sizes were banned. So like, yeah, it was only in the last 5 or 6 years that downhill mountain bikers were allowed to run like a mullet, allowed to race mullet bikes, and that kind of came through industry pressure of an increasing number of like consumer bikes going that way. So yeah, I mean, it's not like the UCI never is involved in mountain bike regulations, but yeah, Alex.
Yeah, so the UCI have also stepped in before in downhill as well with clothing. It's not just the hardware. And skin suits were one of the things they did step in and ban. I think in the late 2000s, up until when a lot of racers had been wearing skin suits for the aerodynamic advantage, but the UCI put an end to that. But in more recent times, Fox have been the pioneering brand in kind of finding workarounds to this, creating weird dungaree type clothing and making trousers and jerseys ever steadily tighter. And we're pretty much back to skin suit levels of tightness now. But yeah, it's not just the hardware that the UCI have stepped in mountain biking before. They have also looked at clothing and equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, I think generally speaking, I think one of the attractions of mountain bike racing is like the lack of regulations. Like there are regulations in place, but they're pretty loose. And yeah, like to the point that, these brands were all investing in this new big wheel size that might now not happen. But yeah, Ronan, how likely
is it going to happen? Or is the UCI ban in competition going to have any effect on the mountain bike space? And I think you could argue it either way, in that typically when the UCI bans something, it effectively then disappears, especially on the roadside. Whereas if, and I don't know, but if 32-inch does provide a benefit to the rider, be they small or tall or whatever, do you think a UCI ban will kill it? I'm not sure it would on the mountain bike side, because I know mountain bikers are much more likely to use a setup and a bike and a system that works for their riding style than just whatever the pros are using. Brands have opened molds on these things. We've seen a BMC prototype, but you can be sure there are other prototypes flying about. Tires have been made. If tires have been made and prototypes have been ridden, and wheels have been made, suspension has been made. I don't think this is whether or not 32-inch comes to the market hangs on a UCI rule or not. I think it's coming. The question just will be whether or not it survives a UCI rule.
I think whether it succeeds in the market within at least the cross-country discipline will depend on whether professionals use it, because there is still a lot of investment in the marketing around racing in order to sell these products within the cross-country market. And I do think that if the UCI bans it, brands are still free to bring it to market, but I don't think it'll ever reach its potential. And I think it'll probably be like a short fad. Whereas if UCI doesn't ban it, I think we'll see it take off. And I think, we'll see, the momentum take over.
Interesting. I just wonder if we're now at a point where, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. That's what we're talking about here. Whether that matters as much anymore when you've got all the other avenues and mechanisms by which brands can market their stuff. You've got influencers, you've got YouTube, you've got, the media also. Like if we're writing this stuff and saying, you know what, actually this is good, or maybe this is bad or whatever, but either way, I just wonder if in this day and age, it's not so highly dependent on pro riders.
Yeah, I think it comes back to like the use case of the 32-inch wheels, and everyone you speak to, the use case is racing. Like they talk about it being like the right application for short travel suspension bikes, where racing and speed against the clock is sort of the priority. I think there's genuine limitations and sort of fun factor limitations or handling limitations around putting it in like bikes with longer suspension travel, and those are the markets that aren't really governed by the UCI, and no one really cares what the UCI does in those spaces. But I think in cross country, it is still a traditional kind of lycra market where most of the customers will, they sort of do look to the World Cups to see what's good. And I think that still is fairly important. It's not critical. I think some of these brands might still sell some bikes, but I come back to thinking like, if the UCI bans this, it's going to really put the brakes on the idea.
Because if it is that competition specific, let's say, and I'm not, I know you're not saying it's not specific to competition, but let's, if we take that from what you just said, then the development will just cease. And if the development ceases, then our brand's really going to open 2-3 molds for various different wheel sizes. If we're talking frames, I don't think we already know that won't happen based on what happened in 26 and 27.5. 29 came along and just effectively killed both of them at the top end.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see though what frame sizes you can go down to, retaining like appropriate geometry and everything for a 32-inch wheel, because essentially if 32 does take off in competition, there will be a very short-lived performance benefit for the teams that get there first. But once everyone's on 32-inch wheels, you're back to a level playing field. The only people that really are going to suffer from this are going to be the people that can't make this work for them. They're going to be on bikes where the geometry is compromised, or simply they can't run a 32-inch wheel. And I think that is something to maybe be conscious of, is especially in the women's cross-country scene. There are a lot of riders kind of around the 160 or lower centimetre height. And it could be that rather than being a technological step forward, it's just a thing holding some riders back.
Yeah, it's not just the women's. Like, I think like Tom Pidcock's not exactly a giant. Even Nino Schurter's about 5'8".
That sounds plenty tall enough to me.
8 centimeters. Yeah, he's a giant. But yeah, I think like some of the best riders in the world are not necessarily tall enough to ideally fit this wheel set. And then you do look at the women's field, and the field is very much split over who could and couldn't effectively ride this wheel set. So I think there is
that a certainty though? Like, no. Do we know for certain that a smaller geometry won't work on bigger wheels?
No,
it
some
seems
brands
so obvious, but
yeah,
the reason I'm asking is just like, I don't think this is going to be one of these UCI rule changes that there's a whole backlash to. I think actually the public perception of it might be quite positive.
Mm-hmm.
And my fear around that is that we're putting 2 and 2 together, the we there, including the UCI, we're getting an answer we assume is correct, and everything we know about these things is actually, you know what, maybe it just needs a bit of maybe we need to look into this a bit further before we make a decision based on a hunch.
That's more my train of thought, and the question around frame sizes is if everyone can be on 32-inch, especially at the point in a competition, like, go for it, bring it on, let's go for it. But if you're ending up with half a field on a wheel size that effectively offers an advantage and half a field that effectively can't, or they're on a bike that's compromised to make that work, then I question whether that's good for the actual competition of the sport.
Yeah, so 2 thoughts on this, which is one, the same arguments were made to 29er wheels, where small riders felt they were disadvantaged, and brands for a while did multiple wheel sizes options for small, extra small and small frames came with 650B or 27.5, and larger frames came with 29er. The other thought on this is that the likes of Trek did actually tell us that they wouldn't really be interested in this if it weren't applicable for all frame sizes. That the market potential just gets smaller and smaller if it is only for like large frames and up, and that they really are only assessing it for like on the idea that they could have it for everyone, and sort of get the whole market that way. So yeah, some thoughts there. But I also think that going back to something Ronan you said, which is this wouldn't necessarily be the first time that the UCI bans something, but more as a temporary halt to let the brands figure it out and figure out whether it is actually something that they want to fully get behind, and whether it's has full industry support. I'm thinking like disc brakes, right? Disc brakes sort of started to come into the market, got banned, and then a year or two later it was opened up and it was fair game again. So perhaps maybe this is another example of that, where the UCI banning it is not like we never want to see this. It's we want everyone's buy-in on this, and we want everyone to be able to catch up. So there's no real disadvantage and no sort of like dissonance, I guess.
I think what you're referring to is like disc brake and how that was introduced. And I think that happened under a very different, I'm not sure if regime is the right word or not.
And it happened for different reasons as well, like neutral service was involved and various other factors.
Yeah, I just don't know if the UCI industry crossover is functional at the moment that would enable such a, just reading between the lines of everything we've seen since the handlebar width was, and everything that we've reported on Escape Collective, the UCI now seems to go on sort of unilateral runs where they just like, they will consult with the industry, but then do what they like anyway. So I'm not as confident that it could follow such a path again. Because arguably that's probably the best path, is like, right, well, do what we've seen BMC do, use these things in practice, show us on World Cup tracks the day before the race what this looks like, show us, tall riders, small riders, everybody in between, show us the data on how this, is it fair, is it not fair, what are we looking at here, and make an informed decision. Because like at the same time, we're talking about if half the field's on 27, if half the field's on 29ers and half the field's on 32ers, I don't know. It's not going to be halves either. It's going to be 32Es. We're talking about those who will be most compromised and most benefited potentially from a bigger wheel size. They're on the fringes. They're the smallest and the tallest riders, and arguably, whatever way we go is going to compromise in the other direction. If we go to smaller wheels, the tallest riders will be compromised, and vice versa.
Yeah. If
we're talking about smaller riders being disproportionately affected by bigger wheel, you could argue that the tallest of tallest riders have been disproportionately affected by smaller wheels that we've had forever. So again, you could argue this one in any direction, and I think that's I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Ronan, you're busy writing this up. Is this something that people can read about when they're listening to this?
It should it'll should be published by then, I would imagine. I mean, we also just like dropped a bit of a bombshell at the start of this, that we figured out that this may be on the way to drop bar bikes as well, and just haven't discussed it. So I don't know if we want to save that for another day or.
I think we're just gonna walk by and not make eye contact with that topic.
One of those where you're in the supermarket and you see someone and you're pretending you haven't seen them, and they're pretending they haven't seen you. Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna just remain Facebook friends with the idea of 32-inch wheels on road, and if I do ever see them out in the street, I'm not going to recognize them.
I think we could be on something on the road.
Yeah.
Connor Dunn might finally have a bike that fits him.
"32-inch wheels." Ronan is writing up that somewhat exclusive story that you've found out. Whether the UCI is going to get involved in that, so head on over to Escape Collective to check that one out. Next on the list, we've got a little something that's been on my mind. It was somewhat of a surprise. I received some new Paceline X rotors from SRAM for a bike, and in the box with the rotor, in the rotor box, was a centerlock lockring with no other than SRAM branding. And so why this is a big deal is that centerlock is 20 years old at this point, a little 21 if I'm not mistaken. And SRAM started offering it quite a number of years ago, and has, in that time, ever since offering centerlock, has never offered lockrings. A few years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I remember Zip lockrings came into the market, like external type lockrings. They came out, but yeah, you'd still buy SRAM rotors, and you wouldn't get lockrings with them. You'd buy a SRAM equipped bike, and more often than not, the brake rotors would be held on by Shimano lockrings. And rumor has it that Shimano had a patent on its internal splined lockrings that sort of prevented SRAM from selling such things. They could match the interface, but they couldn't offer the complete package. And 20 years later, patents expired, and now we get SRAM branded lockrings. I think it's a fun little thing. But I don't know.
What a great day for cycling fans around the world.
I know. This is the big stuff you hear first at the Geek Warning podcast.
I'm convinced like the majority of our listeners would have found themselves with a SRAM labeled centerlock ring at some point, and we go, oh, that's interesting.
and moved on. But Dave, no.
No,
Dave
not
went,
me.
oh, that's interesting. And then like spent 4 days figuring out
Yep.
why.
Yep. Put it on the show notes, call around, reach out
Messaged
through
on
through
Slack
LinkedIn
over the weekend. It was like, look what I
Yep.
found.
Yep. Digging into patents of Shimano lock rings and happy days. So anyway, it sounds like SRAM's in the process of updating all of its stock, and I think there's for those that are ordering, I think there's different part numbers depending on whether the rotors come with lock rings or not. So just one to watch out for.
Do you think someone at SRAM had like a calendar reminder set with alert 1 year before, alert 6 months before, alert 2 days before the patent expired, and then boom? Or did they just like go, that patent's gone, let's make our own?
I think an executive at SRAM has been sitting, has had a bathtub of these lock rings for years now, and finally they get the bathtub out of their house.
I can just picture them on the streets of Chicago just throwing lock rings into the air like people used to do with cash. And
yeah, it's a happy day for everyone. But yeah, there you go. I think it's a fun little tidbit that when patents expire, and it helps to explain other designs in the market. Like I think back to like the AFS system on Campagnolo fulcrum wheels, where it's sort of like that external thread with the lock ring that's like the internal lock ring that slides over to the external threaded hub. I believe that was also done to skirt around Shimano patents. So,
which I mean, that one has just always been like, why? And the why is obviously, as you just explained. But
so there you go. So if you come across a SRAM branded lock ring, or you have a bike that you bought brand new and it has SRAM parts, but it has Shimano lock rings for some reason, there you go. Answered.
Dave, while you're on the topic of SRAM brake components, I think I have a corrections corner for you from last week's episode, because if I remember correctly, you had said that Shimano disc rotors have the minimum thickness printed on them and SRAM don't. And at the time, it sort of jarred me because I was like, I feel like that doesn't sound right. And I've noticed since that, SRAM rotors also have a minimum thickness printed on them. 1.55 mil to be precise.
Cool. I'm going to push back and say not all SRAM rotors have that, but it's good to know that some of them do.
Well, the D1 and E1 SRAM red rotors that I'm looking at both have a
good result. All right. Well, what did you say it was? 1.55?
Yes.
Nice. A little thicker, a little bit thicker than Shimano's allowance. So, which in theory means less wear allowance. But anyway, let's move on.
Well, it depends where they start at. What thickness do they start at?
I think they start at 1.85, don't they? And Shimano starts at 1.8. Anyway, let's stop now before I have another corrections corner. Anyway, on the topic of disc brakes and rotors and rotor thickness and everything, that's probably a pretty good time to get into a PSA. Once again, I think a couple of weeks ago I had a PSA related to that every part on a bicycle is safety critical, and it tied into a threaded that I was working on for that week. And this week the threaded article I'm working on is all about brake bed-in. So any guesses what the PSA is that I have?
Take your brakes to bed.
That took a turn. Yes, it is the topic of brake bed-in. I guess the PSA this week is that if you have a new bike, or you're starting fresh with new rotors or new pads or new rotors and old pads and old rotors, vice versa, then you need to do a bed-in for best performance and best outcomes. And I think it's a PSA because I think there's still quite a few people out there that don't do brake bed-ins on new stuff. And I think it's also surprisingly common for shops to sell new bikes or to fit new pads and rotors and not do a bed-in. I often hear shops explain the process to the customer, but don't go as far as doing it for the customer. And I am going to have a very strong opinion here, which I kind of get into in my threaded article and explain why. But my opinion is that the job is incomplete if the brakes are not bed-in. Thoughts?
I tend to agree with you because I know, like, worst case scenario, when it's not done at a shop and you buy a new bike, you end up with squealing brakes and you end up replacing them much sooner, and you end up with a person who just is maybe their first time on disc brakes and they're going, this is a joke.
Bad experience.
Yeah. And so not doing it, yes, job is incomplete. The challenge I've seen is like for like local bike shops and that, how do you do it efficiently without sending your mechanic out to ride for fucking 10, 15 minutes per bike that he assembles or she assembles, and without spending, how much are those bedding machines? Like
around $2,000.
Yeah.
US.
Not every local bike shop can afford that.
Yep. So that's the difficulty, is like, to do this properly, it either takes plenty of time in good weather, because to do it in the rain is dangerous, and you'll ruin the rest of the bike in the process. So it's not feasible to do it when the weather's bad. But and unfortunately there are dedicated machines now, like Cinter, for example, does a really good one that I've been using. But yeah, they're expensive, and shops have a hard time justifying that expense. But my increasing opinion is that they just need to justify the expense. I think it is just such a critical point in the assembly, and without it, your brakes, one, you roll out the door without bed-in brakes, they don't stop at all, or they don't stop effectively for the first few stops. And then if you do happen to do some hard stops on a brake that isn't bed in, what you'll end up doing is unevenly transferring pad material onto the rotor. So from there on, that brake will pulse, it'll perhaps vibrate, it'll perhaps squeal, it'll make noise, and it also might cause premature pad wear as a result of all that. So yeah, you'll never basically have a disc brake functioning as well as it should if the brake isn't appropriately bed in to begin with. The bed in, quite simply, is just a matter of evenly transferring pad material onto the rotor with a little bit of heat. And that is a process that I outline in my threaded article. But so yeah, there you go. An unpopular opinion that I'm sure is going to upset many shops, but I think it's one of those things that I think those machines just, if you are in a climate that you can't test ride bikes and you can't bed in brakes in a reasonable way as a professional shop, I think you just need to invest in a machine.
Could it be done on rollers?
It's a lot of effort to do that, I think. I think it's an impractical amount of effort.
Thinking like when I've tried to do that in the past, because when a bike arrives to me in winter, I can't do it outdoors.
Yep.
Just pretty much can't be done.
I've heard of people using electric treadmills.
The next question I was going to ask you was, could a shop invest in a secondhand treadmill?
Yep, it could be. I think there's some danger in that, but yes, that actually will work.
It seems to me like rollers would be easier.
Yeah, anything that'll spin the wheels for you and let you brake against it will in effect work. So yeah, treadmill certainly works. I know some very savvy shops have made their own bed-in machines, but yeah, otherwise something like that Cinter, which is a professional tool, is probably going to be the recommendation, and it's very turnkey and perhaps the most space efficient method of doing all this. But yeah, there you go. I've done some polls on Instagram I'll share the numbers in my thread article, but yeah, I've done some polls, and certainly not every shop and not every professional mechanic is doing bed-ins, but I just really believe they should be. And as I outline in my threaded article, do check it out. But as I outline in that, it doesn't need to be as involved as what brake manufacturers suggest it is. It doesn't have to be 30 stops per brake. In my testing, you get to a really efficient point of the brake system in way less than that. So, anyway, I'll save some for the article.
Dave, any disc brake bed-in tools popping up on AliExpress and the likes yet?
No, I have heard from one or two brands that are looking at the category to bring down the price point. But I think it's not necessarily the easiest category to get into, because in some countries it counts as like machinery, and so there's OH&S regulations around it. So so I think it is one of those things that needs like auto stop start and safety features built into it in order to be sold in like the EU, for example. So I think that might be a limiting factor for some people looking into it. But yeah, if you're savvy and you sort of can figure out how a treadmill works, you might just be able to make your own.
What speed are we talking about here for a treadmill?
I'd say around 20 kilometers per hour would be the ideal. Well, there you go. Check out the article. I think I said that 5 times already, but do so. I think it's a pretty important topic this week. So, all right, lucky last for this week. We've got a little bit of tech news. Comes from DT Swiss. A few weeks ago, we announced that they had a stop ride notice, and officially that has become a recall. Yeah, so the recall relates to DT Swiss's ERC, CRC, and HEC complete wheels, which, sort of the 35 and 45 millimeter depths. They've also expanded the recall to include the ARC series wheels with rim heights of 50, 55, and 65 millimeter rim heights. But there are specific dates. Any products delivered after August 1st of 2024 are sort of concern. Anything before that is very likely okay. But yeah, just check out DT Swiss's announcement. If you think you've got these wheels, head on over to DT Swiss for full details of this one. But yeah, it does sound like it's a potential safety risk. So definitely follow it up if you've got these wheels or you know someone that does.
An interesting point just on the email today. I was of the understanding it was wheels manufactured after 1st of August 2024, and what DT Swiss are saying is actually wheels delivered after 1st of August 2024. There's a key difference between those, like manufactured, there would be very few of those probably in the market already or in use already, whereas delivered after 1st of August last year kind of means that
it's a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this could be a quite wide-ranging recall. Of course, with this DT Swiss recall news, that does also involve some of Swiss Side's wheels, which share a rim. So models of that include the Hadron All-Road 450, Hadron Classic 500, Hadron Classic 550, and Hadron Classic 650. Again, certain dates and stuff will apply. So anyway, head on over to Swiss Side if you think that one affects you. All right, so I think that's it. It's probably time to get to Ask a Wrench.
Who's the wrench this week, Dave?
The wrench is Brad Copeland. He's managed to have quite a few consecutive weeks, and we caught him just before he's deep in the thick of Leadville things. So we're got him on, and he's helped to answer a few questions. It's actually quite a longer segment this week. I think it's I snuck in an extra question more than normal, but this week we've got stuff related to like how to seat fussy tubeless tires, whether running a dehumidifier impacts tubeless sealant longevity. There's a call to the industry for easier product help and information, and we also have a question about chain lube recommendations for indoor trainer usage. So a bit of a variety on offer there, but a few good chats. All right, we'll head over to Ask a Wrench now. And as a reminder, it's for members only, members of Escape Collective. If you're not already, you're missing out. Head to escapecollective.com/join if it's in your means. And a reminder for anyone working in the industry that works as a pro mechanic or works as a mechanic in a shop or any of that sort of career path, we since day one have offered a promotion, an offer to gain you access to everything we publish at Escape Collective. Just head to our FAQ and you'll find the option to become an annual member at what's effectively our admin cost. So you gain access to Ask a Wrench, and I truly believe it'll help inform you in your day-to-day job. All right, let's get to that. See you guys.
This episode was produced, edited, and mixed by Will Jones at Red Bricks Media.